Hungary has vetoed a proposed €18 billion financial aid package from the EU to Ukraine, leaving the remaining 26 member nations scrambling to find ways to keep the cash flowing to Kyiv. Many of them believe Viktor Orban's government is refusing to cooperate over Ukraine because Brussels is withholding billions of euros waiting for Budapest to implement rule of law reforms. The European Commission has called for unity and speed. Now, both EU member Hungary and its neighbour Serbia have been ambivalent in their stance over Russia and Moscow's war on Ukraine. Speaking at a meeting between EU leaders and nations in the Western Balkans, hoping to join the bloc, the president of Kosovo didn't mince her words when it came to Belgrade's stance.
On one side, you have countries that fully align with the European Union, and on the other side, you have countries that fully align with Putin. They should not be treated the same. Whether you stand with Ukraine today or you stand with Russia should matter. Whether you have adopted sanctions against Russia or not should matter. And these are signals which the EU should send very, very clearly to all of the countries of the Western Balkans, because standing on the right side of history today is the least that should be expected of us.
Anastasia Fedek is an assistant professor of finance at Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley. She's also a founding member of the pressure group Economists for Ukraine. Ms. Fedek, welcome. Hungary vetoing aid for Ukraine. How much does that weaken the EU stance vis-a-vis Russia?
Now, of course, Hungary's actions, both now and throughout the last 9 months, have been problematic. Hungary has not supported aid to Ukraine in the same way as its other EU partners. And what we're seeing is that Hungary is actually using it as a lever to kind of extract what it wants from the EU. Of course, on the other hand, it's also a lever that other member states of the EU have to get Hungary to conform to what the broader union wants to do. So it goes both ways. The aid that Hungary needs from the EU is something that both Hungary is demanding and kind of withholding aid to Ukraine as a way to get what they want, but it's also something on which Hungary is ultimately dependent. So it is a lever that allows the other European states to usually get Hungary to go along.
So what does this mean for the 26 EU countries that want to see more money flowing to Kyiv? Do they just have to sit it out? Will Orban eventually come around?
No, I don't think we have the luxury of sitting out anything when it comes to aid to Ukraine right now. The situation is very urgent, so we definitely do need speed in kind of implementing any of these aid packages. So what we're seeing instead is that the European Commission is considering how else it can deliver that aid. Ultimately, other member states are going to be able to get money into Ukraine if they want to get money into Ukraine, whether they do so in a consolidated manner with each other, using kind of other mechanisms, including kind of subsets of states pulling together through enhanced cooperation, or if they do it individually. It's unlikely, but at the end of the day, they have these options. So they can get that money to Ukraine, and at the end of the day, if they want to, they can also reduce then the budget of the broader EU and kind of do things more independently. That is actually going to be harmful for Hungary. Hungary is among the most dependent on EU budgets. So to kind of weaken the overall EU budget relative to individual countries' budgets is not going to be in Hungary's best interests. So it is feasible that Hungary will understand this and will reverse this decision that it's showing right now. But even if it doesn't, the other member states definitely have ways to not rely on Hungary to do something like deliver aid.
Let's talk about Serbia. How can the EU increase pressure on membership candidates to clearly side with Ukraine?
I think watching kind of what goes on with Hungary is perhaps a way to do that. So kind of the benefits that Hungary is drawing from EU membership, as well as the expectations that sets on Hungary to behave both with respect to things like joint initiatives, including aid to Ukraine, but also including domestic things like corruption and rule of law. I think other kind of hopeful members are observing that, and that definitely gives them an indication of both the expectations as well as the benefits ultimately of joining.
Yesterday, the EU's oil price caps kicked in. How effective do you think can they be at limiting revenue Russia can use to finance the war?
So you asked the question, can they be? So I'm going to start by answering in general terms. I think in general, price caps can be very effective for two reasons. First, price caps are a mechanism to reduce revenues to Russia without abruptly reducing supply to the market. So unlike an outright embargo, price caps are still allowing that oil to flow, but are reducing the amount of money that is paid to Russia for that oil. As long as they're above the production costs, there is an economic incentive for Russia to continue producing rather than shutting down and harming the energy producing infrastructure as a result. The second reason is that it broadens the set of countries that are cooperating. So in terms of the embargo, that's kind of what the EU does an embargo. That's a certain set of countries that are not buying Russian oil. With a price cap, we're actually pulling in other potential partners in this endeavor, the countries that are relying on shipping companies and insurance companies, and that are going to conform with the price cap as a result. So kind of a broader set of countries that are effectively participating in the sanctioning. That's in general. If we talk about specifics, then that, of course, depends on the level of the price cap and how much that actually is going to reduce Russia's revenues.
What else needs to be done in the way of international sanctions to get leverage over the Kremlin? I didn't want to ask you that. We don't have much time, though.
Yeah. So, of course, with the sanctions that are already in place, there's always room for improvement. So we just talked about price caps. It's a great start to have a price cap at $60. It's not going to do that much. So we definitely, hopefully, will be working towards lowering that limit in the future. Our group of experts recommend somewhere around $35. But more broadly, there's still a lot of leverage that the Western countries have vis-a-vis the Russian economy that we still haven't really exploited. I think the main area going forward is going to be technology sanctions. So Western technology still permeates Russian society. We see these pictures of Lavrov with his iPhone, and that's a single case. But in reality, Russia is using Western phones, Western software, all of that to both do the military actions as well as to prop up the economy. So limiting the Western technology will have a big impact on the Russian economy in general.
Anastasia Fedik of UC Berkeley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.